The air inside the Galactic Concord's high tribunal hummed with tension. Light from a dead star filtered through the dome's crystalline walls, casting long shadows across the chamber. 17 alien species sat in towering arcs around a central dais, their forms as varied as the worlds they represented. Some had eyes that blinked sideways. Others communicated through scent or vibration. All of them watched the lone human standing below. Cale Renner stood perfectly still. His dark uniform bore no rank, no insignia, just the simple blue circle of Earth on his left shoulder. Sweat gathered at his temples, but he did not wipe it away. He knew every sensor in the room was locked onto him, reading his pulse, his breath, even the flicker of his pupils. They wanted to see fear. He would not give it to them. The Varelian arbiter loomed above, its segmented body coiled like a silver serpent. Its voice, translated through the chamber's resonance field, dripped with cold authority. Species designation, human. Planet of origin, Sol 3. Status, provisional observer. Violation, concealment of military capacity during initial contact. Penalty, planetary quarantine under Concord Directive 9. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Quarantine meant no ships in or out. No data exchange. No voice in galactic affairs. For a young species like humanity, it was a death sentence wrapped in legal parchment. Kyle took a slow breath. "With respect, Arbiter," he said, his voice calm despite the weight pressing on his chest. "Humanity committed no violation. We shared everything we had, our science, our art, our history. We asked for nothing but a seat at the table. And yet," the Arbiter hissed, "you hid your warship." Cale's eyes flicked to the massive viewport behind the dais. Beyond it, the void of space stretched endlessly, empty, silent, waiting. Or so it seemed. 3 months ago, first contact had been peaceful. The research vessel Odyssey, carrying scientists and diplomats, had drifted near Proxima Centauri when a Varelian patrol intercepted it. Humans offered open data streams, classical music, and real-time mathematical proofs of cooperative intent. The Varelians, impressed by human creativity, but unnerved by their rapid technological growth, granted Earth observer status. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted. Children drew pictures of alien friends. Politicians spoke of a new era, but in the shadows of Earth's orbital shipyards, something else was being built. The Ares Vanguard was never meant to be seen. It was a ghost project, authorized by Fleet Admiral Nia Voss after intelligence suggested the Concord viewed emerging species not as equals, but as threats to be managed. The ship was humanity's answer, not to fight but to ensure they would never be forced to. Now, as the Arbiter prepared to seal Earth's fate, a deep vibration shuddered through the chamber. Not sound, something deeper. A ripple in the fabric of space itself. Every alien representative stiffened. Sensor panels flared red. The Varelians' coils tightened. Outside the viewport, the stars flickered. Then, as if tearing through a curtain of reality, a massive shape emerged from nothingness. Sleek, obsidian black, and longer than 3 city blocks, the Ares Vanguard decloaked without warning. No transmission, no identification signal, just silent, overwhelming presence. Gasps filled the chamber. The Cathari delegate, a chitinous insectoid with 6-jointed limbs, rose abruptly, mandibles clicking in alarm. The methane-breathing Lurathi ambassador exhaled a cloud of blue vapor, signaling shock. The Vanguard hung in space like a blade held to the throat of the galaxy. Cale did not smile. He simply turned to the Arbiter and said, "We didn't hide our strength. We simply chose when to show it." Silence fell. Thick, heavy, electric. On the bridge of the Ares Vanguard, Captain Elias Rourke stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His crew moved with quiet efficiency, eyes locked on their stations. No one spoke. They had trained for this moment for years. Not for war, but for respect. "Hail from the tribunal," said Lieutenant Mara Cho from Communications. "They're demanding we power down and submit to inspection." Rourke shook his head. No response. "But sir, that's an order." Back in the chamber, Cale faced the storm of questions. "Is this an act of aggression?" demanded the Cathari envoy. "No," Kyle replied. "It's an act of clarity. You judged us based on what you thought we were. Now you see what we are." The Varelian Arbiter's voice trembled, not with anger, but with something rarer, uncertainty. "Why now? Why reveal it here in judgment?" Because you were about to make a mistake, Kale said. And humanity doesn't let its future be decided in the dark. Unseen by the Council, 3 smaller human ships, stealth corvettes named Haven, Warden, and Sentinel, had already slipped past the outer defense grids. They hovered near critical relay stations, their engines cold, their presence undetected, not to attack, to watch, to ensure that if things turned violent, Earth would not be alone. On Earth, billions watched the live feed from the tribunal. In Mumbai, a schoolteacher paused her lesson. In Nairobi, street vendors fell silent. In Buenos Aires, families gathered around flickering screens. No one cheered. No one panicked. They waited. Because for the first time, humanity stood not as beggars at the gate, but as equals in the galactic arena. Admiral Nia Voss watched from the Lunar Command Center, her face unreadable. She had gambled everything on this moment. If Rourke fired a single shot, Earth would be branded a rogue species. But if he held firm, if Kale held firm, they might just earn something no young species had in centuries: true sovereignty. Inside the tribunal, the Larathi ambassador finally spoke, its voice a low, bubbling rumble. This changes nothing, and everything. The arbiter hesitated. Protocol demanded immediate military response. But the Vanguard had not fired, had not moved, had not even powered its weapons. It simply existed, undeniable, unignorable. Kale took one step forward. Let us speak as equals, not as accused and judge, as neighbors. The chamber remained still. Outside, the battleship hung in the void like a promise and a warning. No one knew what would happen next. But one thing was certain. First contact had been peaceful, until humanity's battleship decloaked. The silence after the Air's Vanguard's arrival did not last long. Within hours, the Galactic Concord issued a formal demand: power down all systems, release command codes, and submit to full inspection. The message was clear. This was not a negotiation. It was an ultimatum. Captain Elias Rourke stood on the bridge of the battleship, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the tribunal's transmission flashing on the main screen. Around him, the crew waited. No one spoke. They knew what refusal meant. War, or worse, exile for all of humanity. Rourke turned to Lieutenant Mara Cho. Send this back. Earth respects the Concord's authority. But the Air's Vanguard answers only to Earth Command. We are not hostile. We are not hiding. We are here to ensure fairness. Mara typed quickly, her fingers steady. The reply went out on an open channel. Plain, unencrypted, meant for every species in the chamber to hear. Inside the tribunal, the Cathari envoy slammed a clawed limb onto the council table. This is defiance. They mock our laws. The Varelian arbiter did not respond immediately. Its many eyes flickered as it processed the human message. Something in the wording troubled it. Not aggression, not pride, just caution. But caution was not enough for the Cathari. That night, under the cover of diplomatic blackout protocols, their fleet began to move. 3 heavy cruisers, 2 scout frigates, and a command dreadnought slipped from their hidden docks near the Orion Belt. Their destination, the Sol system. Their orders: secure Earth before it became a threat. Back on the Vanguard, Rourke received a priority alert from Earth. Admiral Nia Voss's face appeared on his private screen, tired but sharp. Elias, the Cathari are mobilizing. We've confirmed it through deep space relay taps. They think you're bluffing. I'm not, Rourke said. I know, but they don't. And if they reach Earth before we're ready, billions will pay for their fear. Rourke nodded. Then we make sure they never get close. Meanwhile, inside the tribunal chamber, Kale Renner met with the Larathi ambassador in a quiet antechamber. The methane breather's glass dome hissed softly as it spoke. Your ship frightens them. But your words make them think, Kale leaned forward. We don't want enemies. We want partners. But we won't be treated like children who must ask permission to speak. The Larathi exhaled a slow cloud of blue vapor. There are records, old ones, from before the Concord was whole. They speak of a species that built ships like yours. They vanished. Some say they were erased. Kale's pulse quickened. Do you have access to those records? The ambassador hesitated. Not openly. But if you can prove humanity is not a danger, I may share what I know. At that moment, alarms blared through the tribunal complex. The Cathari fleet had jumped into the outer system. closer than expected. Panic spread among the delegates. The Varelian arbiter called an emergency session. Kale rushed back to the main chamber. The vanguard still hung in place, unmoving. But now new sensor ghosts appeared on the tactical display, small, fast, and silent. Human stealth corvettes. The Haven, the Warden, and the Sentinel had taken position near 3 key Concord relay stations. They carried no weapons capable of destroying a cruiser, but they carried something more dangerous: data jammers and phase disruptors. On Earth, global defense networks activated. Cities dimmed non-essential power. Orbital defense platforms powered up for the first time in history. In schools, children were taught emergency protocols. In government bunkers, leaders prepared for the worst. But Rourke had another plan. He ordered the vanguard to shift position, just slightly, angling its hull toward the incoming Cathari fleet's predicted path. Then he gave a single command: initiate Echo Protocol, no weapons fired, no missiles launched. Instead, the vanguard pulsed a low-frequency subspace wave, harmless to organic life but devastating to unshielded navigation cores. The wave traveled faster than light, bending around gravity wells, slipping through sensor nets. 73 seconds later, the lead Cathari cruiser vanished from tracking, not destroyed, disabled. Its engines froze. Its comms died. Its crew was alive but blind, drifting in dead space. The other ships panicked. They tried to recalibrate, to reboot. But the Echo had already infected their systems. One by one, they lost control. Inside the tribunal, the Cathari envoy shrieked in fury. "They attacked us. Without warning."
Kale stepped forward.
"No, they stopped you. Without violence. Your fleet is intact. Your crew is safe. But you were coming to Earth with weapons drawn. What did you expect?" The Varelian arbiter turned to its own sensors. The data was undeniable. No energy weapons, no kinetic strikes. Just a single precise pulse that exploited a flaw in Cathari engineering, a flaw humans should not have known about. How? The arbiter asked, its voice quieter now. Kale met its gaze. "We study, we learn. We prepare. Not to conquer, but to survive." Unseen by all, the human corvettes remained near the relay stations. Their mission wasn't to fight. It was to show that humanity could reach the Concord's most vital points and choose not to strike. On the Vanguard, Rourke received another message. This time, not from Earth. It came from a hidden frequency buried in ancient solar radio noise. The message was short: "They erased us. Don't let them erase you." Rourke didn't understand it fully, but he knew one thing. Humanity was not the first to stand against the Concord's control. Back in the chamber, the mood had shifted. Fear remained, but now mixed with something new: respect. The Lurathi ambassador stood. "I move to delay the quarantine ruling. Let us speak with Earth as equals. Let us understand what they truly are." The Varelian arbiter did not agree, but it did not refuse. Outside, the Ares vanguard stayed silent. No threats, no demands, just presence. And presence, in the cold logic of galactic politics, was power. Kale returned to his quarters that night, exhausted. He looked out the window at the stars and at the dark shape of the battleship, watching over them all. He thought of Earth, of his sister in Vancouver who had sent him a message that morning. Make them see us. He had. But the real test was coming, because the Cathari would not accept humiliation. And deep in their hive mind command, a darker order was already being given. Find the source of human knowledge. Destroy it. But they did not know the truth. Humanity's strength was not in one ship. It was in what that ship protected. The memory of those who came before, the courage of those who stood now, and the quiet, unshakable will to never be silenced again. The galaxy had thought humans were new. They were wrong. And the Vanguard was just the beginning. Kale Renner stood in the dim glow of Earth's lunar archive, deep beneath the sea of tranquility. The air was cold and still. Around him, rows of ancient data cores hummed softly, powered by backup systems older than the United Earth government itself. He had come here on a hunch, guided by a fragment of code the Lurathi ambassador had slipped him during a private meeting. It led to a file buried so deep, even Earth's own historians had forgotten it existed. The file opened with a burst of static, then resolved into grainy images: a star map, a ship design unlike anything in modern records, and a language that looked almost human but not quite. The date stamp read 11/842 years ago. Cale's breath caught. This wasn't just history. It was proof. 12,000 years earlier, during Earth's so-called Dark Age, when cities burned and oceans rose, a colony ship named Eos Dawn had launched with 10,000 souls aboard. It carried not just people, but the last surviving fragments of a lost alliance. The ship had vanished from all records. Officially, it was assumed lost in the void, but the file told a different story. The Eos Dawn had not been lost. It had made contact with a species called the Mirathi, builders of neural weave cities and gravity sculpting engines. The Mirathi saw something in humans, not just intelligence but adaptability. They shared knowledge, especially about phase shield harmonics, predictive combat modeling, and subspace resonance. Then, without warning, the Mirathi were gone, erased, their worlds turned to glass, their names scrubbed from every galactic archive except one. Humanity had kept the truth hidden, not out of fear but out of duty. The survivors of the Eos Dawn had returned centuries later, broken and few, carrying data crystals and warnings. They buried the knowledge deep, waiting for a time when humanity would be strong enough to use it without being destroyed for it. Now, that time had come. Cale transmitted the file to Admiral Nia Voss and Captain Rourke under maximum encryption. Within minutes, both responded. On the Ares Vanguard, Rourke stared at the schematics of the Mirathi phase shield. It wasn't just armor. It bent incoming energy around the ship like water around a stone. The Vanguard's hull had been built using those exact principles, though no one on the design team had known why the math worked. Now they did. Back on Earth, Voss convened an emergency council. "This changes everything," she said. "We're not just defending ourselves. We're carrying a legacy." But the Concord didn't know any of this. To them, the Vanguard was a mystery, a sudden leap in human tech that defied logic. And mysteries made powerful beings nervous. The Cathari, still reeling from their fleet's disablement, had not given up. Using back-channel spies inside the tribunal, they learned of Cale's visit to the Lunar Archive. They didn't understand what he found, but they knew it mattered, so they struck, not at Earth, not at the Vanguard, but at the weakest link, the human colony on Helios Rift, a small research outpost on the edge of known space. Barely 500 souls, no weapons, just scientists and engineers studying stellar anomalies. The attack came without warning. 3 Cathari raiders dropped out of warp and opened fire on the colony's shield generator. Alarms screamed. Civilians ran for shelters. The station's commander sent a final, desperate message before comms went dark. "They're here." "Tell Earth," the message cut off. On the Vanguard, Rourke received the alert. His face hardened. This wasn't war. This was terror. He turned to his crew. "Plot a jump to Helios Rift, maximum speed." "But the tribunal," Mara Cho began. "Has already failed," Rourke said. "We protect our own." The ship's core flared as it prepared for a high-risk jump. Meanwhile, Cale stood before the full Concord assembly, holding up a copy of the distress call. "You see this? This is what happens when fear rules over reason. The Cathari attacked unarmed humans because they think we're weak, because they think no one will answer." The Varelian arbiter remained silent. The Lurathi ambassador shifted uneasily. "They attacked after your ship humiliated them," a Cathari delegate snapped. "This is your doing." "No," Cal said, voice steady. "This is yours. You chose violence because you couldn't accept that humans might be more than you assumed." Before the debate could continue, a new alert flashed across every screen in the chamber. The Ares Vanguard had vanished from orbit. It had jumped. At Helios Rift, smoke rose from the colony's outer ring. Fires burned in vacuum-sealed labs. The Cathari raiders hovered like vultures preparing to board. Then space tore open. The Vanguard emerged, not with weapons blazing, but with its phase shield fully active. The Cathari fired immediately, plasma bolts and kinetic rounds. But the shots curved around the human ship as if repelled by an invisible hand. Rourke gave a single order. "Initiate Decloak Echo, full resonance." The Vanguard pulsed again, but this time stronger. The subspace wave didn't just disable systems, it created a recursive time loop in the Cathari navigation cores. For exactly 73 seconds, their computers replayed the same command over and over. "Recalibrate, recalibrate, Recalibrate. In that window, the Vanguard moved. It didn't fire. Instead, it used its gravity thrusters to nudge one raider into the path of another. The collision crippled both. The third tried to flee, but the human stealth corvettes already waiting in the asteroid field jammed its warp drive. Within minutes, the raid was over. No humans died. No Cathari ships were destroyed. But all three raiders were disabled, their crews trapped. Rourke opened a channel. "This is Captain Elias Rourke of Earth. You attacked civilians. You will surrender your command logs and stand for judgment, or we will leave you here to drift until the Conquered finds you." Silence. Then slowly, the lead Cathari ship powered down. Back at the tribunal, the footage of the rescue spread like wildfire. Not through official channels, but through the galactic datanet, shared by traders, scholars, and even rival species. They saw humans defending the helpless, not with rage but with control, not with destruction but with precision. The Lurathi ambassador stood once more. The Marathi were erased for sharing knowledge. Now humanity carries that same light. Will we extinguish it, or learn from it? The Varelian arbiter finally spoke, its voice softer than before. "The human species is not what we believed," Kale nodded. "We never were." But as the debate turned toward recognition and rights, Rourke received a new message, this time from the disabled Cathari command ship. Buried in their logs was a reference, Project Watcher. Authorization level Omega. Origin Core Worlds. He didn't know what it meant. But the name sent a chill through him. Because deep in the lunar archive, in a file Kale hadn't opened yet, there was a symbol. An eye inside a ring of stars. And beneath it, 3 words in Marathi script. "They are watching." The Ares Vanguard had won the battle at Helios Rift, but somewhere in the heart of the galaxy, something far older and far more dangerous had just noticed humanity, and it was waking up. The galactic concord fractured like thin ice under too much weight. After the events at Helios Rift, the unity that had held the 17 species together for centuries began to crack. The Varelians called for calm. The Cathari demanded war. The Lurathi and 2 smaller delegations pushed for full recognition of Earth as a sovereign power. Arguments filled the tribunal chamber day and night. Accusations flew. Alliances shifted like sand in a storm. Kale Renner watched it all from the human delegation suite, his eyes tired but sharp. He had expected resistance. He had not expected betrayal. A message arrived from Earth, not from Admiral Voss, but from a civilian scientist in the Arctic data vault. It contained a single line of decoded Marathi script. "The Watchers do not rule. They erase." Attached was a star chart pointing to a dead zone near the galactic core, a place no ship had entered in 10,000 years. Official records called it the Silent Maw. Unofficial whispers called it a graveyard. Kale knew then that the real enemy was not the Cathari. It was something older, something that had made the Concord what it was by removing anyone who threatened its order. But before he could act, the tribunal made its move. The Varelian arbiter announced a compromise. Earth would be granted provisional membership, but only if the Ares Vanguard returned to Sol space and powered down for 6 solar cycles. A show of trust, they called it. Kale saw the trap. If the ship left, the Cathari would strike again. If it stayed, humanity would be branded uncooperative. Either way, they lost. He prepared to argue, but Captain Rourke made the choice for him. Without warning, without signal, the Ares Vanguard vanished from orbit. Not destroyed. Not cloaked nearby. Gone. Its last known coordinates pointed toward the outer edge of the Helios Rift, where the Cathari had attacked the colony. Panic erupted in the chamber. The Cathari envoy shouted that humanity had broken the truce. The Lurathi ambassador demanded proof. Kale stood silent, heart pounding. He didn't know Rourke's plan, but he trusted it. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Rourke gripped the edge of the command console. "We're not running," he told his crew. "We're answering." The distress signal from Helios Rift hadn't just been about the attack. Buried in its final seconds was a faint energy signature unlike Cathari tech. Cold, precise, ancient. The same signature found in the lunar archive files. Someone else had been watching the raid and they had left a trail. The Vanguard T-20 dropped out of warp near the ruined colony. Debris floated in silent clouds. Rescue ships from neutral systems were already collecting survivors. Rourke ordered a full sensor sweep. Minutes passed. Then from the shadow of a dead asteroid a signal blinked, weak, repeating, human-made. It was a distress beacon from a hidden lab module, jettisoned during the attack. Inside they found Dr. Lena Morrow, the colony's lead astrophysicist, barely alive. She clutched a data chip in her hand. "They weren't just raiders," she whispered as medics stabilized her. "They were looking for something. They scanned every archive, every core. When they didn't find it, they started destroying." "What were they after?" Rourke asked. "The Echo Key," she said. "A Myrathi device. It doesn't store data. It unlocks memories embedded in space-time itself. The Eos Dawn brought it back. We were trying to understand it." Rourke's blood ran cold. If the Cathari had found it, they could access everything the Myrathi knew, including how to build weapons that could unravel stars. But they hadn't found it. Because Lena had hidden it, she gave Rourke the chip. On it was a single coordinate. Not in human space, not in conquered territory, but in the neutral veil, a lawless stretch of space between empires where no one dared patrol. Rourke made his decision. "We go there. Now." Back at the tribunal, Kale faced the full fury of the conquered. "Your captain has abandoned diplomacy," the Varelian arbiter said. "He acts like a rogue." "No," Kale replied. "He acts like a protector. While you debate, others move. The Cathari didn't attack by accident. They were sent. And I think you know by whom." The arbiter's coils tightened. "You accuse the Concord itself?" "I accuse silence," Kale said. "For 10,000 years, species that grew too fast, thought too deep, or remembered too much disappeared. The Myrathi, the Zinthari, the Orlan Collective, all gone. And every time the records say natural collapse, but we found proof. Someone is cleaning the galaxy." A hush fell over the chamber. Even the Cathari envoy looked uneasy. Then from the Lurathi delegation, a voice. "The Watchers." All eyes turned. The Lurathi rarely spoke of their own history. But now their ambassador stepped forward. Long ago, before the conquered, there were guardians. They kept balance. But balance became control. Control became erasure. We stopped speaking their name. But they never left, Kale nodded. And now they're watching us. At that moment, a priority alert flashed on every screen in the chamber. A Cathari dreadnought, larger than any seen before, had entered the Sol system. Not to negotiate. Not to inspect. Its weapons were charged. Its course set for Earth's orbital defense grid. The Cathari envoy denied involvement. But the ship's signature matched no known class. It bore strange markings. Angular, sharp, not Cathari at all. It bore the symbol of the Watchers. On the Vanguard, Rourke received the news as his ship approached the neutral veil. He knew what this meant. The Cathari weren't the masterminds. They were tools. Pawns used to test humanity and to draw out the Echo Key. He opened a secure channel to Earth. "Admiral, they're coming for the planet. But they don't want to conquer it. They want to see if we'll use the key." Voss's voice was grim. "We won't, we can't, we don't even know how." "Then we give them something else to fear," Rourke said. He turned to his crew. "Prepare Decloaked Protocol Omega," Maracho paled. "Sir, that will burn out the core. We'll have minutes before total system failure." "I know," Rourke said. "But minutes are all we need." The Vanguard entered the neutral veil where stars were few and silence ruled. There, floating in perfect stillness, was a small Myrathi pod, untouched for millennia. Inside rested the Echo Key, glowing faintly. Rourke didn't take it. He didn't need to. He activated the Vanguard's resonance array and sent a pulse not to unlock memories but to mimic the key's signature. A fake signal, broadcast across subspace, and he aimed it straight at the approaching dreadnought. Back in the Sol system, the dreadnought slowed. Its sensors locked onto the false signal. For a moment it hesitated, confused, searching. That was all Earth needed. Orbital platforms fired decoy pulses. Stealth drones released memory-scrambling chaff. The dreadnought systems flickered. It turned away, not in retreat, but in pursuit of the phantom signal. Straight toward the Ares Vanguard. Rourke smiled grimly. "Let them come." The tribunal watched in stunned silence as the dreadnought changed course. The Lurathi ambassador turned to Kale. "What did you do?" "We gave them a ghost," Kale said. And ghosts are harder to kill than ships. But deep in the neutral veil as the dreadnought closed in, Rourke knew the truth. This wasn't over. The Watchers had noticed humanity, and they did not forgive mistakes. The Vanguard's core began to overheat. Lights dimmed. Alarms whispered they had minutes, but in those minutes humanity would show the galaxy what it truly meant to stand. Not with weapons, but with will, and with memory. The Ares Vanguard hung in the cold silence of the neutral veil, its hull dark, its engines quiet. Inside, the air smelled of overheated circuits and sweat. Captain Elias Rourke stood at the center of the bridge, eyes locked on the main display. The Cathari dreadnought, now known to be a Watcher vessel in disguise, was closing in fast. Its weapons were charged. Its path was direct. It would be on them in under 3 minutes. But the Vanguard was already dying. Decloaked Protocol Omega had pushed the ship's core beyond its limits. Warning lights blinked red across every console. Lieutenant Maracho reported coolant failure in sectors 4 through 7. Life support would last another hour, maybe less. They had one shot. Rourke turned to his crew. All hands brace for resonance burst. This is it. No one flinched. They had trained for this. Not for victory, but for meaning. Outside, the Watcher ship loomed like a blade of black metal, its surface smooth, featureless, ancient. It emitted no signals, no hails. It simply came to erase. Then the Vanguard pulsed, not with weapons, not with fire, but with a wave of pure chronoton energy, amplified, focused, and shaped by the ghost signal of the echo key. The pulse hit the Watcher vessel not as an attack, but as a question. Do you remember? For a single, impossible second, the dreadnought froze. Its smooth hull flickered. Images appeared on its surface, faint, ghostly, of cities burning, of ships vanishing, of species erased. The Myrathi, the Zenthari, the Orlan, all the ones the galaxy had forgotten. The Watcher ship shuddered. Its system stuttered. It had been built to forget, but the pulse forced it to remember. And in that moment of confusion, the Vanguard did the unexpected. It opened a comms channel, wideband, unencrypted, sent across every known frequency in the galaxy. "This is Captain Elias Rourke of Earth," he said, voice calm, clear, strong. "We are not your enemy. We are your memory. You tried to bury the past, but we dug it up, and we will not let you erase anyone else." The message spread like light through darkness. It reached the tribunal. It reached Earth. It reached trading posts, hidden colonies, even the silent outposts of species long thought extinct. On the bridge of the Watcher ship, something changed. Not a surrender, not a retreat, but a pause, a hesitation that should not have been possible for a machine built only to obey. Then slowly, it turned away. Not toward Earth, not toward the conquered, but deeper into the veil, toward the dead zone known as the Silent Maw. The Vanguard's systems groaned. Sparks flew from a console. Rourke gave the order. All non-essential power to life support. Prepare escape pods. But before anyone could move, a new signal appeared on long-range sensors. Not one ship, dozens, then hundreds. Dormant signatures hidden in the void for centuries began to wake. Some were broken. Some were half alive. But all bore the same faint energy trace. The echo of those the Watchers had tried to erase. They had heard Rourke's message, and they were answering. Back at the Galactic Conquered Tribunal, silence reigned. Every delegate watched the feed from the neutral veil. They saw the Watcher ship retreat. They saw the Vanguard, battered but unbroken. And they saw the first of the ancient ships emerge from the dark, rust-covered, patched, flying under flags no one had seen in millennia. The Larathi ambassador stood. "The galaxy is waking up." The Varelian arbiter did not argue. It simply bowed its head, a gesture of deep respect rarely seen outside their own rituals. Cale Renner stepped forward. "Humanity does not seek to rule. We seek to remember, and to protect the right of every species to exist, without fear of being forgotten." The motion passed unanimously. Earth was granted full membership in the Conquered. Not as a junior partner, not as a probationary species, but as equals. On Earth people wept, not from fear but from pride. Children looked up at the stars and knew their place was secure, not because of weapons, but because of truth. The Ares vanguard limped back toward human space, escorted by 3 of the ancient ships. Engineers from a dozen worlds offered help. The Lorethi sent coolant. The Varelians sent repair drones. Even the Cathari remained silent, shamed perhaps, or simply afraid. Captain Rourke stood on the observation deck as Earth rose over the lunar horizon. He thought of the Eos dawn, of the Mirathi, of all the voices the galaxy had tried to silence. Humanity had not started this fight, but they had finished it not with war but with memory. Weeks later, in a quiet ceremony on Mars, the Echo Key was placed in a new archive, open to all species, guarded by none. A symbol that knowledge should never be hidden, only shared. But as the celebrations continued, Rourke received one final message. It came not from the conquered, not from Earth, but from the edge of the silent maw. The Watcher ship had entered the dead zone and sent back a single image before vanishing. It showed a massive structure buried in a black nebula, towers of dark metal pulsing with slow ancient light, and at its center, a symbol, the eye inside the ring of stars. The message beneath it was simple. They are waiting. Rourke deleted the message. He would not share it, not yet, because humanity had won the battle. But the war for memory had only just begun. And this time, they would not face it alone. The galaxy had thought humans were new. They were wrong. And now, the forgotten were rising.